they don't have office fees, so they all the money that comes in, whatever, they have to distribute it somehow, and, you know.
And their stock prices tanked. The stock price tanked.
Oh.
Their stock price, they're publicly traded.
What's up, peeps?
Hello.
Your worksheets? Sharing that? Oh, they're killing me. Where's these forms at? All right, so we have that there. How do we get them up on the screen?
You can use tax rewards. Tax rewards.
You have tech problems?
This is a good, you take pictures of any receipt you have, and then it categorizes it
Oh, really?
to whatever you spend, you know, so you know how much you spend, and then put it in gasoline, food, whatever. It knows what category to put it. But in top of that, they give you points, and exchange gift cards, or like you can have different points, you get a final gift card, whatever, you know, like watch Amazon and everything.
I don't get that. Okay, so.
Just in case I have trouble, I have a couple of people that have problems finding the documents.
Do you keep moving the mouse?
Links are.
Sorry, I'm not moving. I'm not touching it.
It was on me. In the chat, I did a link to all the recordings of the past sessions and also the document here. For some reason, there's two agents that on there, they're on Zoom, they can't see documents for some reason. But, so they are in there on the link as well.
They're both ways.
All right, so there's nobody here other than.
Yeah, I was just on, because I can't do that for you.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe another couple, that'd be great. And it's recording. It's all recording.
Yeah.
I think it says.
It was, let me double check it.
I think I saw that it was recording.
Yes.
Big dogs in there.
I know. I was like, whoa.
We good?
The cavalry
I know.
I sure did.
I was even intimidated. I'm like, "Who's shut the dog?"
Are you moving the mouse?
Yes. This is my good side. Do I need to stay on the other side?
You got more hair on
Do I
the
have a good side?
That's the better of the two questions.
Susie was very, Susie was not bashful yesterday in telling me probably between 15 and 73 times how I married up.
I did make sure you knew that.
Have you met her? She did the same darn thing.
I am kind of bold. Don't ask me unless you want to know. And then even if you don't want to know, I'm still going to tell you.
Right? If you're arguing, your mother dresses you funny, I feel like I think you can tell with that. All right, so it's really just us three and Rhoda. So, hi, Rhoda. So, this one is kind of, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Andrea,
Andrea, I'm Scott. How are you?
nice to meet you.
So we're going to kind of fill in the gaps. Like if you have any questions, we're going to go through this stuff too, but I also want to go through what kind of questions you may have based on what we've covered so far. This is kind of the review of all this, and we're going to do proceeds and net proceeds and seller net sheets and fill out closing disclosure. And it's probably going to be a second language if you haven't been to a closing table yet, but we're going to give it a shot, so at least you have an idea. Okay? So if somebody else comes up in here, just let me know. I don't need permissions here, right? don't see anybody asking to come in. Any questions on what we've covered? Anything like? We good with contracts? Are we good with, are we transaction brokers? Are we good with single agency disclosures there? Listings?
I was going through actually yesterday the contract class that we did last week.
Okay.
And how do you know which addendum is that? Because you ask questions that do we need this or that, or it's just, how do you find out what addendum are needed in that process?
So a little bit of experience, but I mean, if we were to just drop you in a cage and say, go do it right, you know, all those links, when I say I go through and like IMAP is my friend, you know. If there's a required addendum, are you talking about as a list, so
That's what the contract.
as a listing or for a contract?
It's a contract, because you know, you have a lot of addendum that I can add a DocuSign.
Right.
And obviously, if it's a condo, I can do the HO and the condominium documents, and there are some obvious ones, but other than that, you know, you have to ask questions to the parties, what to add, or how does it work?
Right, so a lot of that comes from, so if you go through that checklist, I think there's 3 columns down there. Your most common ones are going to be an HOA addendum. Okay, is it in a homeowners association? You need to know that. You need to go through either, so in the MLS, where it shows, I think it's the community section, which will be about the 3rd section down on the MLS. It'll tell you if there's an HOA fee. I'm pulling up on the screen real quick. So I can pull my MLS. I'm not screwing everything up here. Probably not possible, right? No, I can't pull it. I can't pull it up. So if you go onto the MLS and you pull up a property on there, it will, I think it's about the 3rd section down, it'll say community. Okay? It will tell you if they're disclosing an HOA, what those fees are and that kind of stuff. Ideally, if the listing agent is doing their job correctly, it will be posted in the MLS as an attachment. You know how to find attachments on a listing? No. Okay, so.
I will find it out.
Okay, so you pull up a property, 123 Main Street, okay? And, you know, if you're taking a look at the screen, it'll be like a picture over here, and then there's a gray bar across the top that says the address. Right above that, there's a bunch of little icons. The one that's a paperclip. That's the one where there's some. Okay. So, see this right there, that paperclip?
Okay.
So in this neighborhood, this is going to tell you what attachments, that icon doesn't show unless there are attachments. Okay, but they should tell you what that is. And if you go down here, to community information, see it says HOA, yes, 295 required, when, semi-annually, so it's twice a year. Okay, so that's where you're going to find those things out. It's not your job necessarily, unless you know it to be inaccurate, it's not your job to find out as the buyer's agent. It's not your job, sorry.
No, it's okay, I can show.
It's not your job to find out that it's accurate. Your job is to convey the information. All right, so if a seller discloses incorrectly, wrong fee or no fees or something along those lines, it's on them. And then you have issues. In the spirit of trying to get it right from the first time, if you know that it's in an HOA, or you know that there's a CDD or something like that, it's in your best interest to make sure that the disclosure is signed and provided. Okay, so some agents are lazy, they just put it out there on the MLS, and don't fill in any of the blanks. It's just the way it is. You know, some people don't attach any disclosures, but they do put it in there, so that's where you'll check those kinds of things. If, you know, when do you need a lead-based payment addendum? Okay, so you'll know that if you look at the description in the house is built 77, 78, 77, 76, 62, you know, that you need to have a lead-based payment addendum. If it's in Lakewood Ranch, it probably has a CDD. If it's in Palmer Ranch, it probably has a CDD. So they should be disclosing these things to you. If you know that there's a CDD, but it's not disclosed, go to the tax records, pull up the trim notice. I showed you how to do that last week, I think, and it will tell you the non-ad valorem taxes, which will be your CDD. So it's a little bit of research on your end. You're in coaching with Susie? Okay. Are you still supposed to be submitting your first 4 deals or whatever it is before they go out to the public?
Yeah.
All right. Those are the kinds of questions that you count on her. She will kind of walk through with you and find out to make sure that you got the proper addenda attached to the deal. If you're buying or selling property, it's, you know, addenda AA. It's over in the 3rd column all the way down. You have to disclose that you have an interest either buying or selling this property. Or even, they want to say, first line familial. So if it's your mother, father, sister, brother, you're supposed to disclose it. Okay, so it's really kind of understanding the property. And I would go through, I remember when I was new, I would just take a look at that checklist, you know, and say, all right, well, it's not an CDD, it's not an HOA, it's, you know, does this, and was built before 78 or 78 or before, so I need this. Mold addendum is optional. You know, some people want a defective drywall addendum, some people want a mold addendum. You know, it's up to you. Some of those things that are optional, you'll know, like mold is not a required addendum. Defective drywall or Chinese drywall. You heard of Chinese drywall?
No, I saw the addendum for it though.
Okay, so Chinese drywall was when we were going crazy building in the 2000s. We as a country couldn't get drywall fast enough to keep up with how fast we were building homes. So it's called Chinese drywall because we were buying it from China, and it had a very high sulfur content to the portion of it, which is deteriorating copper. Some people say it makes them sick. And
How do you know the house had it? Is there certain years they had to be built in?
You probably won't find too much of it anymore, but it was, I mean, research Chinese drywall, Google it. But you'll know what it is. It has a very distinct smell. Back in the day when it was really prevalent, I mean, I remember there were certain neighborhoods like it's called Lighthouse Cove in Heritage Harbor, and the Terrace in Greenbrook, and that there were pods in the driveways where the builders were required to strip these houses and remediate them. So anything porous, it could really get into. So they would have to take it down to the studs. They could leave the tile, but the studs, the flooring, like the wood subflooring, they would have to spray it with this chemical and remediate it, get certified that it was remediated, and then put proper drywall.
Wow.
It was crazy. So, I mean, we sold houses for people, you know, in, let's say like 2010, 11, that in 2006 and 7, they paid $430,000 for, and we couldn't sell them for $125,000. Number one, because of the recession. Number two, because nobody knew what Chinese drywall was and if there was a long-term effect to it. So people wouldn't touch them. People just absolutely would not touch them. And the way to tell, I mean, you can kind of, the way to properly tell if there's Chinese drywall is to cut I think it's a 2x2 or a 4x4 square out of every sheet of sheetrock in the house. Who's gonna let you do that? Right? And because then you'd have to patch it and fix it. But there was definitely a sulfur smell. Sulfur is like, you know what sulfur smells like, right? So rotten eggs. It would smell like rotten eggs, especially if it was a vacant house and the air wasn't moving through it. It would smell horrible. You could definitely smell. So basically what would happen is we just got in the habit of opening up kitchen cabinets, looking at the toilet plumbing, anything that was copper to see if it was turning black. And if it was no copper and it was all like PVC or CPVC, we all kind of carried screwdrivers with us and we would unscrew the outlets and take a look at the wiring on the side of the outlets to see if it was turning black. That was like the telltale sign because that sulfur content turned copper black. But, so that's what that is, sorry for the long explanation. That's
Interesting.
Yeah.
you know, that's what that is. So, you know, you'll learn all that. Experience is going to kind of bring this into the fold for you. Like I just got off the phone with an agent who had a mess of paperwork for this one transaction, and you know, back to my mortgage days, I would tell my people, there's only so much that I can teach you sitting in a classroom or sitting in front of you. And the most valuable things that you'll learn and that you will never forget is when you get stopped in the face. And unfortunately, while that may sound ridiculous, it's real because there's only so much that you can take in and retain because so much of this is situational. You know, a condo versus a townhouse. You know, I can't tell you how many people confuse a townhouse for a condo. What's the difference? Anybody know what the difference is between a townhouse and a condo?
Yeah, side by side of condos, and usually, I don't think that is. Condos are next to each other, right? The entrance is always to the first floor and you just.
Anybody else want to take a stab at it?
I don't know that dictionary.
It's, you look up. So most people will say that townhouses have 2 floors in them. Like it's, you know, you walk in at the ground floor, and that's what most people would think. And then condos, you know, you can have 8 stories and each unit is its own condo. Well, that's probably more accurate. But townhouses, people, you can't tell if a townhouse is a townhouse or a condo without going to the legal listing on IMAP or the tax records where it will say condominium or single family residence. I mean, it can be a single family residence with shared walls. It's not single family detached, it's single family residence. That's a townhouse. So if you like, so where do you live? Like what area? What area? Where? What area?
I'm in a condo.
Where?
Echo Lake.
You know where the walk is? In Greenbrook? Harmony?
Harmony.
Okay, those, they're townhouses.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're 4 by 4, right? 4 together, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that can also be a condo. Okay.
It depends what they register it under.
It's really based on what percentage of the common area. Do you own any land? How do you pay for the amenities? There could be a homeowners association or there can be a condominium association. It's like, who's responsible for the outside, who's responsible for the walls, who's responsible. So it's the vesting of the deed is, well, that's not the right word, it's not the vesting, but it's go to IMAP and it will tell you probably down 2/3 the way down on the left-hand side of the column, it will tell you single-family residence or condominium.
I think someone wanted to get into, is that what that is?
Thank you. So that's how you find out. So you can also go to, you can go to IMAP, you can go to the deed, it will tell you what it is on there. So, you'll want to know these different things. So you'll learn all these things by experience, and you'll start understanding, that some things that have 2 stories in them are actually condominiums and not just townhouses. Okay? So, William, we're just kind of doing a little bit of review for what we had for the weeks preceding. So if you have any questions, unmute yourself and speak up, okay? What else? Make sure that you're disclosing yourself correctly. Okay, transaction broker does not need to be disclosed, right? But a single agency does. Probably you're all going to be single agents, even though the brokerage used to say, well, we all want you to be transaction brokers. Everybody's actions and words, but they're not there as a single agent. Make sure that you're getting everything reviewed for your first, whatever, 3 or 4 deals, whatever it is that you do. And just keep sucking it in. You will be learning for years. You just can't possibly get it all in. You can get it all in one shot. Fail forward, as they say. If you make a mistake, own it, apologize, get it corrected. Come to me, come to Susie, go to Austin, somebody in leadership, and say, this is what I did. How do I get it right? How do I fix it? There's usually a fix for everything. Okay. All right. So net proceeds. I'm going to mark this up a lot. So basically, what happens is net proceeds is really for a seller. Okay. I'm going to say this, I caution you about doing these until you have them checked over and you get to a point where you're very comfortable doing it. Okay? Because I can get this probably within $200. And I will tell my people, it'll probably be within $500. But you'll get it within $200. But if you get it close, they're never, they shouldn't be mad. I joke and I say, well, I'm going to over disclose, but not dramatically. So if the seller says to me, how much will I walk away with? If I sold it at $250, what would I walk away with? I want to be able to give him an idea of what that is. Okay. And I'm going to be a little bit heavy. And my mindset on that is, if I told him if we sold it at $250, then he'll put $225 in his pocket, and he ends up putting $226 in his pocket, they're happy. If I tell them $225 and it's really $223, they're a little dissatisfied. Like, well, you told me $223, where'd that other $2,000 go? It's always the conversation. These buyers and sellers gravitate and retain, the highlights of what benefits them. And all of a sudden, when it goes the other way, it's like, but you said, right? So be careful when you're doing these. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that you should have learned in school, but this will be stuff that they didn't do it in this. And I know the lecture's flying like, pew, 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 pew. It's like, you don't know. Actually, I want to go take a, see if there's something in these worksheets that are back in.
Yeah, when I sold our house in Ohio, I mean, it was so easy watching someone do it. But then when we were placed on the spot, doing it ourselves. it's completely
But
different.
this is the seller's agent, if it's the seller's list, you know, the seller's agent has to do it, right?
Yeah, when I listed the house, yeah.
All right, so these are what's called rate cards. All right, this is for taking the title, and these are the last four. If they're out there, we'll have to get them, have them get more. All right, so keep this, okay? This just happens to be my favorite title company. So write the name Paula on the top of it. Paula is the title agent and the closer. Paula. Yeah. She's awesome. She's been in the mortgage industry. She's been doing this forever, and she's just super, super awesome to deal with.
In the neighborhood branch office?
She's in the labor branch office. You know where, where Kaiser is over there. Lucky Pelican. You know where Lucky
Oh,
Pelican?
yeah.
They're right next to the Lucky Pelican. Okay, right as you go. You know where it is? Lucky Pelican? Yeah, behind like the community center. Not the community, where the visitor center used to be. So anyway, so we're gonna use this card. Keep it. Okay, keep it with you. I always have one in my, what color is my folder? Why? Green for money folder, right? I have from a couple different people in there. These are state, it's called state promulgated. State tells you how much they're allowed to charge. They can't charge you more, but they can charge you less. All right, so you can use these on the back. So let's go ahead and fill one of these out. All right, let's go fill out, and I can get you more of these if you need them. So let's just put, you know, today's date is what, 10/20 something, right? 10/28. 10/28/2020. Property address, we'll just put 123 Main Street. So we're at a listing table, and the guy says, if I take an offer for, let's just say $250,000, what should I put in my pocket? Okay, why is this important to a seller? Well, I always want the most money possible, but if they have a mortgage, okay, or if they're buying something else, they need to know that they've got the money that they've hoped that they were going to have in order to sell this house, right? So, you know, if he says, well, if I sell it for $250, I need $245 in my pocket. Well, I can tell you without even figuring it, that's not going to work, right? But that's, you know, that conversation is, you know, all right, you need X. You know, so if in this case, he needs 227, you know, just for the sake of argument, can we get him that number if we take an offer of 250? So they'll ask you to complete these. Like I said, don't volunteer these until you're good with these numbers, because it will create odds for you. All right, it's like getting bad information. You're either going to, you know, if you get lucky and disclose it dead on, good for you. If you're too high or too low, you know, if you're too low, they may say, well, I can't sell that at that number and lose a listing. If you're too high, they will be super upset when we get to closing table.
But you fill this out before even you list the house, just to make sure the numbers are good for it?
If you want to. If your seller asks you what's going to be my net? What am I putting in my pocket? What are my net proceeds? This is the form you should use. And this is in one of our.
Or if you don't ask them, you just fill it out there. It's like, what is the protocol?
I don't. So there are agents in here that do this with every deal, whether they ask or not. Okay. I never do. They don't ever ask. I can tell you so much of this is this, so I don't want to lead you down the wrong path. If somebody says, if I sold my house for $200,000 or $250,000, and my real estate commission, let's say, is 6%, what am I going to put in my pocket? I can answer that question really quick because I take 250 minus 6%. What else are they going to pay as a seller? What do they have to pay as a seller? No. What are the fees they have to pay as a seller? They have to pay my real estate commissions. They have to pay the transfer tax on deed. Who knows what that is from school? No. No. Anybody know? 7.7%. Is that what you said? Yeah, 0.7%. It's 0.7%. So there's going to be some other little junk fees in there for a couple $100 here and there to request a payoff or whatever. So I take, if I'm charging 6%, I'll take 6%, 0.7%, I'll round that up to 1. So now I know I'll take 7% off my 250. Okay, that's what I'm going to tell them is, well, sir, so what is that? There's a calculator to do that. Let's real quick, 7% on 250. Probably about that. So if we go at 250, we know that we're going to have at least 17.5 come off that number, right? So what's that? 232.5, right? That's what he put in his pocket. That's what we know for sure. So if I said, so Leslie, if I'm dealing with your listing and you say, well, if I sold it for 250, what am I going to put in my pocket? I'm going to respond to you, well, Leslie, you're going to have the things that you have to pay are going to be my real estate commission. You're going to have to pay a transfer tax. And then there's going to be a couple $100 in junk that you're going to need to pay at a minimum. So then I'll whip out my calculator or my phone and I'll say, at 250, your best case is 232.5. Okay. Now, what changes? The rest of the stuff that's on here, right? What I don't know is, I don't know what your mortgage payoff is. Take your mortgage payoff out of that question, okay? What I don't know is, what kind of offer are we going to get? Is the buyer requesting that we pay title? Or are they going to pay title? This worksheet that we're going to fill out is if we are paying title, the sellers, okay? So that'll trigger, well, I don't want deals that I'm going to have to pay for title. Okay, let's have that conversation. And right away, I'm going to say, Leslie, if I can, I'm just going to say, let's evaluate every offer on its entire merit. It's more than just a number. Okay? To which most sellers are going to say, that sounds good. But then you're going to have some sellers that say, absolutely not, I'm not paying that. It's just fundamentally wrong for them. Okay. You know, so then you know how to deal with this person. So for instance, I'm going to say, well, if we get somebody who's going to offer 250 cash, they can close in 2 weeks and that works for you. And there's no other contingencies, 5 days for inspections, all the other stuff. You may want to pay the $2,000 in closing fees to get the home run. And they may or may not agree with that. I would say that that makes good sense, but it's not my house. And I'm going to say, sorry, Leslie, it's not my money. You know, I don't want to tell you how to spend your money, but this is probably a very good offer. And you're gonna tell me how to respond. Okay? So that's how I can do it. You ask me, what do I do? That's what I do. I don't do this worksheet but I can get it super, super close. Okay? So doc stamps. So 250, we already talked about what the doc stamps were. So get your calculators out and let's do this. It's 250,000 times 0.7% or 250. Well, it's even. Yeah, so you can do 2,500 by. So. $1,750. Okay. Brokerage fee. I said I was going to charge 6%, right? This is the seller's side. Seller pays both the seller's and buyer's commission, right? So what's 6% of 250? 15,000?
So you use the agreed selling price.
No, this is an estimate. So if we look at the estimate, if we say, you know, whatever, you know, if we're say we're listening to 255, you know, we expect it to come in at 250, you have to hypothetically come up with a number so that they have a, now, they may at time of contract say, can you tell me what I'm going to receive? Then I complete this, okay? I actually then call Paula and say, can you give me a closing sheet? Because she can get it to the penny. But only if you use her. Okay, so what's 6% of 250? So 15,000?
15,000.
All right, so that goes in line 2 is 15,000. Recording fees. Okay, this is where we're going to go to this rate sheet. 20-something years in this business, I still go to this thing every single year. Recording fees, deed recording is how much? 1850.
Are we looking for the 250,000?
It's on the other side.
Oh, I'm sorry. Recording fee, okay, $18.50.
Okay. All right, so title insurance. This is where we have to go back and front. All right, on the back, 250, what's the fee? $13.25. Right, we all agree with that? Don't write it in, you're gonna be wrong.
Oh,
$13.25, and we go to the other side. Is the buyer paying cash or not? You almost always take that back. Take that back. That'll go on the buyer's side. All right, so we have 250 is 13.25. What else are they going to be paying for? You're writing it in, you're still going to be wrong. What are we paying? Let's say I want to disclose probably worst case scenario, right? So if I'm paying for title, this is when this shows up. Okay. As the seller, do I have to pay for title? Great question.
is that optional?
That's optional. Remember I said, I can tell you that you have to pay my commission and you have to pay that first item up there. So you have to pay the first two things on it, right? The rest of this is dependent upon what kind of offer that you get. So if the buyer's paying for title fees, you're kind of done, sort of. All right, but not really. So title insurance is $13.25. Let's just say the closing is $4.95 because we don't know if they're paying cash or getting a loan. It's at the top, right? We always need to do a title search fee, and and they charge $85, they always need to do a municipal lien search. I would say, put in there $100, because that ranges 70 to 150.
So this is, you're adding.
I'm not, that's what I'm saying, don't write those in, you're gonna be wrong. You have
You're
to add,
adding all of these to the
you have
13.
to add these all up to the 1350.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I was lost there for a
Yeah, me
minute.
too.
So 250, the title, so all of these are title fees. We're gonna put them all in there. All right, so we have 1350, we have 495, 1350 plus 495, because that's the closing fee, plus 85 for the title search, plus, I'm just arbitrarily gonna use $100 for the lien search. What's that number? 2005?
It was 1325.
Okay, so 2005. That's what we're gonna put in there. Now, if they're using someone else, if they're hiring an attorney, this is attorney-owned, integrity title, but if they're actually hiring an attorney for legal fees, kind of unusual that they would, but that's where you'll put that. I highly encourage all my sellers to pay for a warranty for my buyers. I covered that, right? In our listing agreements. How much was that? $460. Right? Prorated taxes. Now, this is something that they will always pay. So let's put an asterisk next to line item number 1, line item number 2, line item number, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Prorated taxes. Now, how do we find out what the prorated taxes are?
X amount divided by 365,
Yes.
and then see how many days are. Not the hourly.
I wouldn't get that specific.
No.
If it's closing on the 20th of the month or the 30th of the month, because there's the way that they charge your taxes, it's January 1 to December 31 on one component of your taxes, and then September 1st to August 30th on another component of your taxes. So I wouldn't get that specific by doing it by 360. All right, give me a tax. How much are the taxes on this house? Let's just call a number. 2,000. All right, so what's annually it's 2,000, and we're going to close. Let's just say we're going to close November 15th. Okay, we're going to close November 15th. So 11/15 close, $2,000 a year in taxes. All right, so what are our we pay taxes what here in what? In the rear, in the front, or the rear? When we pay our taxes in November, do we pay them for what year? 2020? Or are we paying for 2021? When we write that check, November or December this year?
Taxes are usually behind a year, aren't they?
Yes. Taxes are paid in the rear here. So, which is easy for you because you can just look at the tax bill, right? So on this one, the taxes are posted as $2,000 for the year. So 2,000 divided by 12, because there's 12 months in the year, is how much? Something?
166.7.
All right, so, all right, don't write anything down. 166, you can write that down. So 166 is our number. Now, when we go to closing in November on the 15th, the seller is doing what? is the seller receiving taxes from the buyer? Or do they have to pay taxes from the beginning of the year to November 15th?
Seller has to pay before he sells the house, right? So he has to pay that.
Am I communicating that right? Do you know what we're paying here? You pick a date of any year. All right, so if I'm closing in June of 2020, I've occupied that house for how many months of the year? Because I pay in November, December, or all the way back to January, I need to pay the buyer the taxes so that, because he's going to be paying them at the end of the year.
So basically you have to catch up.
You're paying it forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is that? So what does that look like? So we're closing December, I'd say let's round, let's not be specific. Let's say we're paying 11 months of taxes. Okay, I don't want to be specific, I'm not the title company. But I'm going to have to credit this buyer 11 months of taxes because we're closing in November, right? So 11 times 166, 1826, that goes in that line, prorated taxes. Okay. What else might they need to pay? Here's something that, so there's so many houses are in an HOA here. They have something called an Estoppel Fee. Who knows what an Estoppel Fee is? So an Estoppel Fee, I want to make sure nobody's trying to get in here. We all good? Yeah. So an Estoppel Fee, oh, sorry guys.
That wasn't the test, but I forgot.
I know. Those were the words.
All right, for you guys at home, we're going to put an asterisk next to this line because it's a must. We're going to put an asterisk next to this line because it's a must. And it's an asterisk next to this line because that's a must. Okay? All these other things are negotiable within the contract. There's another one that will go in this line if they are living in an HOA. Okay? So HOA, and I'll just put, if applicable, there was going to be an asterisk here. All right, an Estoppel Fee is something that is charged to the seller to make sure that they're current on their HOA payments, that they haven't had a burned out light bulb on their lamp post and they find them $50 a month for that. They do that. I mean, it's unbelievable. In Greenbrook, they will fine you if there's moss growing on your lamp post. There's been cases. You know those little those garden things where the ladies are pointing with a poke out of bloomers or painted, and they put them on at the edge of there was this big case in the newspaper where the lady refused to take it out, and they ended up like being thousands of dollars in fines because she had
wouldn't take the
little garden gnomes and the little painted, the cutout of the lady with the bloomers, like bent over weeding and stuff like that. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, but so that's what an Estoppel Fee will do. It will check: are you current on your homeowners, on your HOA dues? Are you subject to any fees or fines? And the seller will pay that. Okay, it's usually around $250. All right, so put that in there if it's an HOA, because that's usually, it ranges anywhere from 200 to 500. And you don't know what that fee is, so just put in there, just guesstimate at 250, okay? We're just gonna say that this one's in an HOA.
But that fee is charged even though they don't owe any.
We don't know if they owe.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's why you put it in there just to.
It's a license to steal.
Mhm.
That's what the HOAs do. When I grew up, I wanted to be an HOA because they get $250 to take a look at this thing and says, oh, it's got some in his house. Oh, yeah, he's good. That'll be $250. That's what they do. Okay? So that goes in. I'll just write that in there. All right, now, what's my total of my net expenses? Who wants to add that up?
What did you say? I'm sorry, that you put in the other column here?
And I'll just write HOA. I wrote it in my thing, HOA if applicable. Went down here, dude. High level learning going on here. So, all right, we good there? If it's applicable, that's what we put in there.
So that is only if it's an HOA.
If it's in an HOA. You're totally guessing on that number of being 250 unless you've done a ton of business in that HOA, because you just won't know. Okay, you won't know what their fee is. So add up all those things. What's our total that goes here? What are all our fees? Everybody agree with that?
What you have?
She looks pretty shifty. I think somebody should check.
21,360.
I got 309.5.
21, 309.5, close enough. For the sake of argument, we'll just go there. All right? Now, so what goes in the next line?
The 250 minus the 21,309.
Yes, what's that number?
I'm going with your numbers because my numbers got really messed up.
Okay. So let's go back. All right. This line right here, our number should be 1750. Asterisk, always charging it. This number, asterisk, always charging it, 15,000. This number, recording fee, 1850. This number, 2005. Blank, unless they're hiring an attorney. This is actually only if they're paying for a warranty, which we always suggest that that's just a great selling feature. So this line should be 460. Prorated taxes should be 1826 asterisk. This one, we have 250 because they're in an HOA, right? This is the Estoppel fee. This line should be 21,309.50. This line should be 228690 and 50 cents. You good there so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's where it gets a little bit scary because nobody really seems to know the answer to this question. Most sellers don't know the answer to this question. Okay. What's your mortgage payoff? You know, well, my statement said my balance is 186. Okay, so I'm going to say, there's two ways to go from here, okay, but I want you to learn. I'm going to, that's not written on here. All right, so I'm going to hand this to you, Leslie, and I'm going to say, all right, so it looks like your net proceeds are going to be right around that 228, 229 range. That's what I'm going to say. All right, because we're in there. All right, your net proceeds are going to be around 228, 229 minus your mortgage payoff. Okay. If I ask Leslie what her mortgage payoff is and she says 186, number one, where did she get that information? Did she get it off her mortgage coupon, which, or not, they don't even do coupons anymore, right? Everybody does it online. So if you go online and you say, what's your balance is not your payoff. Okay, just kind of take this in, all right? Because when somebody tells you that my mortgage balance is such and such, or my payoff is such and such, they're probably getting that information off of that section where it says balance, and they don't mean the same thing, okay? We also pay interest in the rear, Okay, so if your statement on October 1st says your balance is 186, and you paid off on October 30th, you owe the entire month's interest, right? So they're gonna be always mad. They're gonna say, oh, mine it said 186, now your title company's adding $1,500 to it. Well, your title company isn't doing it. It's because you're paying interest in the rear. So what I will do because I know that it kind of works a little bit, I'll ask Leslie, hey, what's your mortgage pay? Well, they say it's 186. All right, awesome. Can you tell me what your monthly payment is? Oh, my payment's $1,600. So Leslie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a month's payment because you pay interest in the rear. It's likely if you got that off of your last month's statement at 186, because you pay interest in the rear, I'm going to add a payment to it because that payment is the same thing as the interest. It'll actually come in a little bit less if it's accurate. All right, so if she says it's 186 and her payment is 1,600, I'm going to write in here how much? Right, so it's 187,600. 186 plus 1,600, right? I will also take and do this. Circle the word estimate. I will convey to my seller, please don't get married to these numbers. Once we get a contract, this is pretty close, Mr. Seller. I'm going to have a title company give you a true net proceeds sheet that will be within a few dollars once we go under contract. All right, so do we have a second mortgage? No, we're good? No second mortgages.
I don't know. Is that common?
Yes, I mean, people take out, is a home equity loan a second mortgage? A lot of people have them. I just had one in Greenbrook where a lady bought a water softening system and they actually attached that to a lien to her house. So people don't know these things, okay? A lot of people say, no, I don't have a mortgage. I'm like, oh, you're on Franklin. Yeah, I have an equity line. Well, that's a mortgage. No, okay, so you'll hear that. It's very common. No, I own it outright. No mortgages, no equity lines. Oh yeah, I have an equity line. Okay, cool. So let's do our math. What was our subtotal of net proceeds on this line right here? Right. What are we subtracting from that? What's on this line? What was it? 187,600. 187,600. We're just going to say we don't have a second mortgage or home equity line in this situation. So what's our total liens of and equity, total mortgages and liens? 187,600. So we subtract from 228,690.50, 187,600. What do we come up with? 41,090 and 50 cents. So that goes on your estimate net proceeds down here. That's how you figure out what somebody's going to put in their pocket. Now, because we have these fees, we're paying for title, we have to pay off our 187.6 mortgage. Mr. Seller, you're likely going to put plus minus $41,000 in your pocket when you walk away from the closing table. Okay, that's how we do it. Keep these questions. Don't forget to use both sides of them. It's not just the one number on this that you're filling in for title. There's other components to it. You will get people when you're submitting buyer's contracts. You know, they'll say, are you paying for title or you want the seller to pay for title? You know, what's the difference, you know? What's it gonna cost me? Okay. Use the sheet, figure it out. Okay. Let's do that as a side exercise real quick. Ready? All right, so I'm gonna just tell you a price, and I'm gonna tell you what you have to calculate. I'm paying title, I'm the buyer. Okay, don't try to figure this out till I finish my example, all right? I'm going to pay $330 for a house, okay? I'm going to get a loan. And because I'm going to get a loan, I have to pay the endorsements on here.
Wow, that's an additional cost.
Right. Only the buyer pays these. Only ever. All right? So I'm paying $330 for a house. Let's say I was paying cash for a loan. I'm getting a loan. And I know there's going to be one fee that you're all going to leave out. Because it's not on here. So we're going to tap your brains.
Are we using $100 then for the lien search?
Yes.
Is that usually the average?
Yeah.
No, actually, the endorsement loan.
I was just gonna ask.
Is it about the loan, on the loan amount or the total amount or how does it work?
Yeah, how do you calculate the value of the house or the total loan amount?
House. Endorsements to the loan policy, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So 10%.
No.
It's like, ouch.
What does it say? What's that sentence say? 10% of premium for format. All right.
Just added like all the fees. You give them a higher number and they.
All right, so let's go.
They get money back, right? They're happy.
Let me know when you're about all the way around.
well, I stopped at 2,423.50 because I'm stuck in.
All right, well, let's do line items. Figure out the line items. Write each thing out and then we'll add them up. All right, because that's how we'll get through this exercise. Did you write out each line item though? Write out each item. So we'll know where we fell off the tracks. That way you'll know. Let's give it a shot. All right, so 330. Rule is this: I'm paying 330 for a house. I'm paying for the title fees, right? You know that on the contracts we check off either buyer pays or seller pays, right? I'm the buyer. I'm paying for everything on my deal. So what's the first number we have? What's my? I'm sorry.
You don't pay the doctor stamps.
So let's start at the top, like, yes, on my recording fee. I'm talking about, so what's my title insurance? 1725, that's one piece of it. I'm getting a loan. There's a title search fee, right? We're gonna use 100, we're gonna do that, all right? If we want to figure out the promulgated rate, which is already done for us on the back, we can use these calculations, but let's skip over that. Okay, so I'm getting a loan, right? So what's the next fee? If we're going down in order of this card, what's my next fee? Here, yeah. All right, so let's stay on this side of the card. We've already established that we're at 1725 from the other side. So let's stay on this side right here. Let's go start at the top. What are my fees that I'm going to be paying? Right. Right.
Title search.
Yep.
Lien search.
Yep.
Already did the recording.
Yep.
And then you said the endorsement to policy.
Okay. Simultaneous issue fee for lender policy. The lender needs to be insured too. My lender needs to be insured too.
So we need to add a 250.
250. That's not the one that we forgot.
That's only the buyer pays that?
Buyer pays because the buyer is the one getting the money.
Okay, but we didn't add it to this. Okay. Right.
So if the buyer was not paying for the title,
The buyer still pays things related to their loan,
oh, okay.
always. So if they weren't paying for title, they would start paying at this part of our conversation.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, the 250. It's their loan, it's their responsibility. They're going to pay 250. The endorsement, 10% of what?
That's 1725?
What are we paying? 10% of what?
Premium insurance?
So what's our premium?
It's on the side, 1725.
10% of 1725 is what?
172.25.
Right. Now, don't worry about the $25 deal because you likely won't know that. That'll be a title. You know, it says $25 $5 each for the 8.1 adjustable rate or PUD. You won't know that, so just, you got that? Now, you mentioned them. Look, there's two other fees that I, as a buyer, got to pay. What are they? They're not on the sheet, and you've already mentioned.
0.35 on $100 or something. Yep,
What else?
and 0.02. 0.002% on the loan amount.
But that's the notes, I calculate the notes.
Right. So unless they're assuming someone's mortgage, combine those two numbers. It's so rare that they're going to assume somebody else's mortgage. If they're getting a mortgage, let's just say that did I say how much I was borrowing?
No.
All right, I'm borrowing $200,000. So what is that one fee? I'm borrowing $200,000.
$1,100. 0.35 plus 0.002.
I cheat and I use 0.55. So that's what it works out to be. Those two, 0.35 and 0.2 are 0.55. I can cheat and use that unless they're assuming somebody's mortgage and they're usually not. You take 0.55. 0.55 needs to be charged and added to every new mortgage. So if I'm buying this 330 and I'm borrowing 200, I'm going to be charged 0.55% on $200,000 because that's what I'm borrowing. It's another tax.
So you do the 200,000 divided by 100, and then do the times point.
Yeah, that 0.35, you have to divide it by 100 first.
Or you could do 200 times 0.55%.
Oh, okay, yeah, because my total didn't come up.
But it didn't come up correctly, like 200,000, if I did 2.55, it comes at 11,000.
something.
So it's 1,100.
Did you do 200,000 times 0.55% or times 0.55?
Oh, yeah,
1,100, is that?
yeah, that's the correct one.
Right.
But you pay only the 0.35 if it's a new mortgage, right?
Unless you're refinancing, unless you are assuming the existing person's mortgage, it's 0.55. So it's so rare that you're going to assume their mortgage, it's easier just to go 0.55.
I was gonna ask you, how often does that happen? Someone
Rare, so rare.
Okay. 'Cause who wants to take the responsibility of, taking someone else's
In a
loan?
couple of thousand deals, I've never had it happen.
Okay,
Unless maybe now that the mortgage rate is so low, maybe 5 years from now.
5 years from now, it'll
will
probably be very popular. It's a great point. 5 years from now, you will probably want to talk your sellers into allowing them to assume that mortgage because they can't. Like if their interest rate now is 3% or 2.8 or whatever, that's going to be a huge selling feature. Say, hey, you can assume my mortgage. I want 500,000 for my house. You can assume my mortgage and pay me the rest. That's going to be a huge selling feature. All right. So when we add up all those fees, the 1725, 495, 85, 100, 1850, 250, 172.50, and then an $1,100. That would be if I'm telling somebody what are my closing costs, and, you know, what are my title charges, that's what your title charges are going to be.
Did you guys come up with 3,946?
And actually, I have to correct myself on something. It's the,
39%.
they're going to be charged that, but that $1,100 is going to be, that $1,350 is going to be charged to them anyway. So if somebody says, what are my, if I pay title, what are my fees? Take, back out $1,350 off of that number. Because that's on them no matter what. The negotiable piece in play here is that total number minus $1,350. Okay? Did I confuse you all really good?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very confused now.
All right, this is a worksheet that I want you guys to just like do for homework, all right? And this is the way, when I went to class, the guy explained it to me, and I thought, this is so awesome, I'm keeping it, so I've kept it forever. All right, this is the practice settlement statement. Okay, we're not gonna do it now, but do it, all right? And I'm gonna tell you why this BD, BC, SC, and SD. Okay, this is the way he taught us to think about it. And it's like dead on. So the B stands for the buyer. The S stands for the seller. If the seller's got to pay money for something, what's he going to say? Damn. SD, seller, damn. Or debit. SC is seller credit or seller cool. Right? BD, buyer, damn. BC, buyer credit, buyer cool. Okay? It's just kind of a fun way to think about that. It's like, is it a debit or a credit? It's like, is he going to be happy or is he going to be sad? So this is the worksheet. You guys fill it out on this in the categories. This is the answers, page 1, 2, and 3. But don't cheat. See if you can get it right. Okay?
Wow.
Just so you know, you will never be asked to fill one of these out. Okay, the title company does this. But it helps that you understand what it is. I'm sorry. Sorry, this is the credit. It's in your downloads. This is your dams and cools and credits and all that other stuff. This is what that actual, this sheet, what will actually look like when it comes to a closing disclosure. Okay? This is what it will look like. The mortgage company and the title company compile that. Don't worry, you will never have to do it. However, you should know how to, because your client is going to call you and say, I got this sheet, what does it mean? Okay. Yeah, well, because they won't want to call them because the relationship isn't with them, the relationship is with you, right? So then it's like, you know what? You might want to say, let me have Paula give you a call or something, or better yet, you kind of understand this. You'll understand it after you do them a few times, okay? We don't get these. These closing disclosures, if you've heard of the 3-day disclosure.
Oh, that's what they do.
This is the 3-day disclosure. They can't close, the buyer can't close if they're getting a loan unless this closing disclosure is given to and acknowledged at least 3 days prior to closing. That being said, they may still ask you what some of this stuff means. So in that transaction, this is what it looks like. Okay? So they're gonna take a look at borrower paid, seller paid. You know, it's not gonna show credits as much as it's gonna show what they pay. All right? So that's what it will actually look like. And if you can see, this is that damn credit, you know, cool. That's where it will actually show up. I'll be honest with you, they are a little bit hard to get accurate. Just know that it's on the title company to get it right. And if we were to have filled out a worksheet, that's what I should do on this. The net proceeds sheet, we should hopefully come close to these numbers. This, I'm going to go through this. This is an actual settlement sheet. This is what you'll get. You will get this to approve this. Okay? Every single time you will get, the title company should send you this and say, does it look right? Okay? And I guarantee you that almost everybody in this building is going to go right down to this section right here. And they're going to say, is that right? They're going to do real quick. All right, 6% of 455. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all great. Okay. Nobody's going to look at the rest of it. Okay. I can promise you that it happens. And then when that happens, you're going to get a very aggravated buyer or seller when something is missed. Okay. So, hey, why am I being charged this? You approved it. Oh, I just was worried about what I was getting paid. You know, wrong answer, but that's what you do. All right, it's definitely one of the things that you do. All right, so in this situation, you know, was this right? So 455 was the sale price of the property. The seller put $5,000 in deposit at the time of contract, is what this stuff means. So I was talking about the two-part taxes. It's the county taxes and the non-ad valorem taxes. See how this one's prorated from. This closing was what, probably on the 30th of September? This is an old one. So the date of closing. I'm missing it. Where's the date of closing? Oh, I whited it out. Oh, that makes it hard.
Is that the adopted date?
All right, so this was actually closed on the last day of March because of the prepaid interest. All right, so this deal closed September 30th, or March 31st, 2019. So I know that because of the proration calculations on here. I don't know why I whited it out on there, but anyway. So sale price was $455, $5,000 credit. I talked about the two pieces of the taxes. The county taxes we pay in the rear. The non-ad valorem we pay up front. Okay, so this is why they're receiving a credit for the non-ad valorem pieces, but they have to credit or debit the buyer so that they have $12.29 in their account to pay it come November. They're getting charged $132 because when they paid their taxes, let's say December of 2018, they paid this piece forward. This was the big piece, and that gets paid in the rear. Okay, you good with that? These are all fees charged to this. These were all fees that were charged. This is the buyer side, that's the seller side. Okay, the buyer's debits and credits are dams and cools, buyer's dams and cools, debits or credits. Okay, so this buyer needed to pay, because we paid him forward. They paid a discount of 1/4 point on their loan. Processing fee, underwriting fee, prepaid interest, it's $46 a day. Don't ever try to get involved in calculating these. Tell them to get their cost estimates directly from their lenders, okay? When you're trying to figure out those costs and that kind of stuff, this all comes from a lender because they're all charging something different. Okay, every one of them are different. This was, the buyer needed to pay for the appraisal, the credit report, the mortgage insurance premium, because they probably borrowed more than 80% of the value of the house. Homeowner's insurance, property taxes, aggregate adjustment. I was in the lending business for 20 years. I never understood where they formulated their aggregate adjustment. They're allowed to, and it makes no sense what it is. I'm not even trying to understand it. Okay, somebody says, well, what's that aggregate adjustment mean? You say, it's the impounds that they charge here, and they've credited a piece of it back. That's all you can say. Title charges. All right, so the title closing fee. So this is at iCard Merrill. All right, we're at $5.95 versus $4.95 on the other one. Title insurance for 5.5, 8.1. See, the other ones were charging 25 and 25. They're charging 100 and 100. Okay, the piece that's promoted, that's restricted by the state is this piece right here. All these endorsements can be changed. So 455. Let's see if this is an old rate card. 455, 2350. So they gave them a discount here. Okay, because they could have charged 2350 according to this rate sheet. This is newer. All right, so when we were calculating on all those different fees, title fees, that's all this stuff right here. Okay, this is the one that you guys care about. So you're gonna check that. And then recording fees. Recording fees, it's based on a per page. Like the mortgage is recorded per page. And the county charges a certain fee per page. So I don't even know what that is. So we don't get involved in that, we'll get it wrong. That's why I'm saying you'll never get it dead on. You'll get it within a few $100s when you get good. Transfer taxes. Okay, transfer taxes, this is the 0.2, this is the 0.35. I can tell you just by the calculations. Okay, this is the 0.7 for deed transfer. All right, if we take 355 or 455 times 0.7, promise you that's the number that you come up with. Okay, this person had a HELOC or a equity line. They had to pay off $71,910. They had a first mortgage for $299,590. All those, and then here's the Estoppel Fee that I was talking about. It's $250. Okay. So debits and credits. So when we take all these columns, you know, all the numbers in this column right here, 455, 132, and that looks like to be about the only one. It should be 455, 132. And then we take all the debits that are in that, mortgage payoffs, real estate commissions, transfer taxes, and all that stuff. That's what the total of that is. That's his net proceeds. We came up with like 41,000 in our scenario. This guy or girl, they got $46,000 out of theirs. Okay. This buyer, they were credited 404 because that's this column where the cursor is right here. So they were credited. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't the deposit money. I got the wrong column. The seller gave a credit of $5,000. Their deposit money was $8,000. Their escrow deposit was $8,000. So they're getting that back at the closing table, right? $8,000 plus the $386,750 was their loan amount. plus the $5,000 seller credit, buyer agent credit to buyer, so the agent gave him a credit. County taxes, all those numbers, that's what all their credits, somebody on their behalf is presenting $404,000. Okay. But this is what it's actually costing to buy that $455,000 house between all the loan fees and everything else. So this number right here, this is what's due from the buyer in addition to the $8,000 deposit that they already put forth. Okay, so at closing day, this is what the check is that they need to wire. This is the check that will be wired to the seller. Okay? Questions on that? This is like serious French. Can you speak French? Anybody speak French? This is speak Russian. This is serious Russian. All right, for those of you who have never spoke Russian before, I mean, it's just like once you you can see this, hopefully, you know, in the not too distant future, this will bring through and like, oh yeah, this is what that looks like. Okay, it's one of these things. I'm not going to expect you to retain it right now. Hopefully, I mean, it would be awesome if you could, but this is, once you get, this is what we call the finish line. You know, there's all these things that you want to learn up front before you get to the finish line. But if you can remember this, it's super sweet. You can get it because this is payday. This sheet means payday. Okay, so in this situation, you can remember who this was.
I know, it's like, am I ever gonna do that one day? I don't know. I guess you have to.
When I get there.
I do have a question on the title companies. Like, let's say I have a buyer. Do I get to pick, or do I ask if they have an option? I mean, how do you go about with selecting?
All right, so here's how it normally goes. You will get this is kind of the art of negotiation. All right, so, but I'm just going to tell you, if you're working with a buyer and you ask the buyer, do you want to pick and pay for title? Some buyers just want to because they think they have control if they do that. Okay? It's kind of sort of maybe accurate, but nothing can happen different. How do I want to say this? There's only 3 title insurance companies in the country. Okay, so they underwrite, not Integrity, not iCard Merrill. Okay, these are the brokers that actually facilitate the closing. They get paid to do it. The title insurer is the one who gets that premium. Okay, or actually, the markup on title insurance is 70%. It's a great business. That's true. It's 70%. So that $2,000 that they showed there, the actual policy was like $600. That's what they send to the insurance company, and the rest of it is what they keep for business. That's a great business. So, but what was your question? So
The selection process.
the selection process. So because those 3 title companies, in order for them to actually insure the purchase, you can't fudge something. It's not like, well, you know, hey, Johnny, I'm never going to send you any deals unless you know, overlook that. It just can't happen. All right. So some title companies now will actually represent the person that hires them, or I'll say represent them, fight for them on their behalf. The older ones, like iCard Merrill, they represent the transaction, not the person. That's what it used to be. I don't know what they are now. But 10 years ago, they represented the transaction, not the person that hired them. Okay? So now you're finding more of them are representing the person that has chosen them as the title company. So when I'm asked, do you want to, and I'd say it's a negotiable, if I say, do you want to pay for title? Do you want to pick and pay? Do you have somebody in the industry that do you want to pick and pay for it? What's the cost? And I'll say, well, on a $250,000 transaction, it's probably $2,200, depending on how aggressive we are with our offer, it's all part of the negotiation. If it's all about somebody who says, I've got $10,000, I'm a first-time home buyer and I want to get in the house, we're going to probably ask the seller to pay for that stuff. It's funny how many sellers are adamant about they're not paying for it because old school, I'm not paying for it, that's your responsibility. And we could argue about whose responsibility it is to provide a clean, marketable title, because that's really what they're doing. They're ensuring that they actually can sell the house to that person free and clear of any liens or encumbrances.
Can you go half and half?
You can. You can go half and half. It's not common. Boxes on the contract, it says seller pays or buyer pays. That's your two options on the contract. You'll have to write it in if you're going to split it. Okay, you won't choose either of those boxes. You'll write it in under additional comments. It's rare, but yes,
Yeah,
you
well, the reason
absolutely
why I
can.
asked you, I just sold my house in Ohio and we did go 50-50.
Right.
So I was wondering if here in Florida is something that can also be done.
As Dorothy would say, no longer Ohio. Right? So it's different there. So that's how it works. So if a buyer comes to me, and say, well, Mr. Buyer, do you want to pick and pay for title or do you want them to pay for title? What's it going to cost me? $250, it's going to be $2,200. What does that get me? Well, if you use Integrity Title, they will represent you. You will, they'll look over to make sure and protect you rather than protecting the transaction. To some people, I don't care. Some people said, no, I want them in my corner. Okay? It's totally up to them. And that's where we check that off. Did I answer your question?
And what is your opinion? I hear a lot of agents hiring an attorney who does title search. So it's kind of like a lawyer and
Almost every title company is owned by an attorney.
Okay.
Almost.
So you can ask legal advice, or your client can ask legal advice also with it included, or?
It's a moving target. It's a moving target. So you can ask them legal advice as far as what's legal within the contract.
So explaining the contract, for example.
Yes. Now, what does that cost you? For if you're not, it can be anywhere from, it's not, 600 would be a low number to probably like 900
To explain the contract?
to represent you as an attorney. So if you are dealing with a title company that does not give you representation, they still represent just the transaction, which was the common thing until recent years. There are still title companies out there that don't represent either party. They insure and represent the transaction. They're kind of like the transaction brokers of title. Okay? So if you say, I want you to lawyer up for me, there's going to be a legal fee. If you have to litigate the contract because somebody didn't perform, that's a completely separate fee. They're likely not going to represent you for free. Okay, and that's just about every one of them. Like Greenberg, Brad Moyer, they're all going to say, I can enforce the contract, but I can't litigate the contract. They're reviewing the title report to make sure that everything has been checked off and everything is accounted for, and everything is legal. So that Mr. Seller can legally sell the house, Mr. Buyer can legally buy the house. That's what they're to do. They're referees, in a sense, to say that, yes, you can sell it, yes, you can buy it, these are the rules, there's a fence, there's a driveway, there's a basketball, all those things that come up on title, that's what they're checking for. Answer your question? Yeah, but if you need somebody to represent you and litigate a contract, it's probably $600 to $900. Like if you have to argue out a deposit or something along those
And
lines.
that is added to the title company fees.
Yeah, that's completely separate.
Separate.
What else? Any other questions? Any questions? Going back a couple of weeks ago, our brains hurt enough right now. We're just like, no, I can't even think what the questions would be.
When I had my first deal, you hear from me.
So,
Yeah, I'm still watching the videos. I missed the first 2 weeks because I've only been here 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna go back and watch them again, just to
Okay.
make sure that
I think we do this like once a quarter.
okay.
So for you guys with your contracts, I mean, you've been through it twice, right? Do it 2 more times.
Yeah.
I mean, do contracts is, you should, we were talking about this today because we came across some people who have been in business a while, and the contracts change like every year or two. But it seems like some of the agents don't change when the contracts change. So we're thinking about making a requirement that you attend at least 2 contract classes a year, whether it's here or building. Steve Greenberg, who was this guy, he teaches at RASM. He's awesome. He's an awesome contract attorney. So if you ever see that, so contracts, like I said, is where you win and lose. I had somebody, the MLS listing said they would include a riding mower. The listing said that. But they never wrote it in the contract. And the broker of Michael Saunders is calling me up and lighting me up yesterday and telling me, this agent is, so unethical and they didn't. I'm like, well, all right, let me look into it. I never answer. I always have to make sure I get, the 6 sides to the conversation. And it was not in the contract. It was put out there as offered, but they didn't put it in the contract. So it was one of their top agents. And I said, it might be a great conversation to have with her. It didn't, oh, that's rotten, I can't believe it. It's just black and white. If it's not in the contract, it's not part of the deal. And this is somebody who sold millions and millions of dollars in recognition in the surrounding area. But, it's like, you think that you're so good at doing what you do, you don't pay attention to the contract and you lose. So now she's gonna have a really bad experience with the seller or the buyer, and she's gonna have to buy him a riding lawnmower.
Wow.
They want a riding lawnmower.
Scary.
Yeah.
Just not writing the contract.
We had somebody here who, where in the contract where it says included and excluded, put washer, dryer, refrigerator, they put it on the wrong line, excluded. Nobody ever caught it. They show up for their pre-closing walkthrough and there's no appliances in the house. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what else? So the agent had to buy them all new appliances.
Happy closing.
It's like it's too
Hey, I've had to do it. Kelly and I had to do it. We're talking about when we first started, we had just moved here and it was like December 21st, like days before Christmas. And it was the recession, so nobody's doing well, right? And we sold this house in Sarasota. The guy had just redone the kitchen, did an awesome job on this kitchen. And he said, can I keep the appliances? I'm like, no, we're under contract. You can't take your appliances. So we thought that we had snuffed out the conversation. So the buyer drives by the house the day before closing. And she sees the buyer pulling out with his truck with a trailer full of all the kitchen appliances. He calls me up. What's up? What are you talking about? Well, so-and-so's, I just saw him pulling out of the house with all the kitchen appliances. You're kidding. Call him up. I'm like, Russell? He says, yes. I said, are you driving down the road with all your kitchen appliances? Yeah, I told you I didn't want to leave them. I said, and I told you they were part of the contract. He said, well, I'm not leaving them. He says, close or don't close. I don't really care. He was losing the house anyway in foreclosure.
Oh.
So I went home. I said, yeah. I said, you got a situation.
So what happened in that situation when it was like? you
December
didn't care?
21st was the closing. We didn't have a whole lot of money because of the recession. So Kelly gets on Craigslist and starts finding stainless steel appliances. And we went and bought $3,500, $2,100, $2,400 worth of stainless steel appliances. What people were doing, because they were losing their houses in foreclosure, they were stripping them. And you could buy anything on Craigslist for a house, or you could almost buy a house on Craigslist. So we went, bought the refrigerator, the range, the dishwasher, everything for like $2,100 or $2,400, something like that. Washer, dryer, everything, put them in the house. Now this person was buying the house as a rental. So as long as they were in good shape, they worked with us. So we were like stuck with, okay, so before Christmas, and this closing is Christmas for our kids. I don't get a $7,500 commission at all, where I pay the $2,400, and now I can keep $5,000. So most people would say, all right, I'm going to pay the $2,400, whatever. So at least I can keep $5,000 of the deal. And that's what we ended up doing. So it happens. You'll find yourself in the craziest of positions, having to buy stuff, having to fix things. And I think as I'm looking at this, I'm trying to think of what this scenario was, because I had both the buyer and the seller on this, and for whatever reason, I credited them $3,400. But at 27, that was all mine. So I got both sides of this deal. And I'm not sure. I think they bought another house, and we agreed to credit them something on this. So, you'll make business decisions, and you have the latitude to make business decisions as you go through this. And sometimes you'll say, well, it really rubs you the wrong way. Ethically, it's wrong that you're even being asked. Not that you're doing it ethically wrong, but things that will just rub you the absolute wrong way. You think, all right, big picture, what are you going to do? I just say, always operate in the big picture. Always operate in the big picture. You guys haven't been to many, when I was a team leader here, it came out of my mouth, almost every team meeting, never let commission be your mission. Because if you do the right thing, the commissions will come. So sometimes you'll have to do a deal for free. Remember in New Jersey, this lady pulls up with her mortgage, and I'm in the mortgage business then. She pulls up, her kids are in the U-Haul, and all of her belongings are in the U-Haul. We get to closing, and it was a builder deal, and the builder did something crappy. And I called him up. I called the general manager. I'm like, dude, what are you doing with, she's off like, I think it was like 1672, if I remember the check, 1672. And he's like, you write the check. Was his attitude. What are you talking about? Me write the check. Why would I write the check? It's your house. You're going to make $100,000. I'm going to make, a couple of thousand. So this lady was a single mother with like 3 kids, and they're all out in the U-Haul. I'm not going to be responsible for this. So got my checkbook, wrote her a check for 1672, and they closed. I went home and told Kelly, she goes, how are you doing? I'm like, well, paid 1672, so Sally Jones could close on the house. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. But it comes back to you. The karma train's big. So just never, it's like, I'm not saying give away your money. That's not what I'm saying. We work hard for our money, although people say, oh my God, everybody's driving a BMW and Mercedes. How hard can it be to be a real estate agent? It's the between deals, that can be very long. And so don't take for granted your money, but also never let commission be your mission. Because I can tell you, in all my years in this business and having to answer questions and solve the problems of why, what should I do? What should I do? It's do the right thing. And everybody who gets money hungry gets found out, and nobody wants to do business with them. So whatever that's worth, just stick it back in there, file it. Not let commission be a commission. All right, we cool? All right, if you have any questions, y'all have my email and all that good stuff. Stop sharing.